Wakefield, it's the Nolan Current Night Show starring Nolan, where you join Nolan as guest this week, Aniekan Okon. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Nolan.
And welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the Nolan Current Night Show, Season 3, Episode 8. It's hard to believe how fast it's gone, and as I said the last few weeks with guests, and I want to keep chugging along, having some pretty important people, and this is no exception to that rule. I'm proud, I'm honored, and it's a great pleasure to have my guest on this week. Thanks for coming on this week, my good friend. Thanks for doing this for me.
Yeah, no problem. That was quite the introduction. I think I'm still working my way up, but I've been hearing a lot of that kind of similar words the past couple of weeks. So, but yeah, it's a pleasure to be on the show today.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, you're going through the motions. You're at the Cigar, and then the sports editor of the Cigar. So you're making your moves up, and it's one step further. But as I do with all my guests, I like to catch up and see how they're doing. So how is the life of yourself during this time we find ourselves in? That's definitely interesting.
Things are great so far. So we just finished working on our first full edition of the semester. And that was a ton of fun. And now we're just working on working on our second thing, newscasts and stuff like that. I have a couple fun stories planned in the next couple weeks, but I'm glad to kind of just be back in like a full campus, with people walking around, things to do, and it's just great. It's just great because I know last year was very depressing, not being able to interact with friends, no fans at games. And it's just great to see that things are slightly back to normal. But yeah, it's just great.
And which kind of makes me curious. And I've asked this, I had on Val Vellucci, the women's tennis coach, and then Thor Bjorn. I kind of got their perspective, but as a journalist and as someone who's covering sports, is that kind of important for you, to have this full environment back so you're able to cover sports? Because last year and year prior to that, there was none of that, and seasons got cut short, and there's very limited interaction.
I think fans being at a game is kind of a side to like the game itself that we're covering, because our job when we go to games to cover them is to, recap the game and talk about how the game went. It's not necessarily so important about the crowd being there, but you can definitely see that it played a factor a little bit, not having fans. I can say personally, it was weird hearing pumped in crowd music, like cheerleaders. That was weird, but I don't think necessarily it was a factor for us. It was just more of like, it is what it is. That was just the reality of the situation, but it didn't affect us doing our job so much.
Now, for who was known, and I'm sure you saw it, that at the Ryan Center, it's opened back up to full capacity along with wearing masks, and obviously a little different than what it was last season. How difficult at this point in this whole charade to find ourselves in is it covering for sports, in your perspective?
Well, to go back to last year was kind of like a big headache, especially because there was always the worry that games would be canceled, games would be postponed. I know, especially there was the first week of April was awful. It was completely awful because we had, I think, 4 or 5 teams go down in that week, and as I was a staff reporter at the time, and it was just like, what am I gonna do? Like, I don't have anything to cover. I don't have any games to shoot. And that was just a bummer, especially because that was around the time that many teams were finishing out their seasons. So to not have a proper way to close out your season, to have something like COVID kind of end it, that's a bummer. And it just feels good, especially for the athletes, to know that won't be as much of a factor this year.
Now, there has been a level of success as of lately for the program starting at the school year with football, and then soccer had a good game recently with PC and many other beginnings and so forth. From your perspective, your thoughts and how do you assess so far how URI Athletics has done?
I think things have been great so far. Like you mentioned it yourself, football off to a great start. They play Brown tomorrow, looking to win their first 3 games for the first time since 2005. Men's soccer have won 5 for they're unbeaten in 5 of their first 6 games. They're playing great. Women's soccer have had some tough games, but they've been playing great. Volleyball, volleyball as well. They've been playing great as of late, but I think it's exciting to see all these teams playing, and you can kind of get like a certain sense, especially with fans back. There's a certain buzz with these teams playing.
I asked this to Thor last week. With patience with certain teams, and as you mentioned, women's soccer and volleyball having a tough go, and it seems over the last few years, they although they may have played well in a few games, it's a tough season. They might not get the end result that they want. For you as a reporter, because I haven't had many members of the Cigar this go around, how much patience do you have to have with a program that's not necessarily doing as well as maybe other programs that are having success during the same season?
I think you have to have tremendous patience. I think not even just with sports, but with just life in general. Some things aren't going to pan out as quickly as you want them to. So it's just a slow building process. And I think just as long as you lay down a solid foundation, I think that's the most important thing. I think the best example that comes to mind is women's basketball. Historically, haven't been the best program. And just Tammy Reese has done a tremendous job slowly building the foundation, simply on just habits, building good habits. And last year they had a tremendous year. She won A10 Coach of the Year. And then this upcoming season, her team's one of the favorites to win the A10 this year. So that's just the best example. I think patience, it's not going to take for her. It's going to, it took 2 years, 2.5, 2 years. And then for other teams, let's say football, it took Jim Fleming. He's in his 8th season now. So it takes a while, but I think just as long as you're laying the foundation and, really instilling good habits, the programs will turn around.
Now, on a different level for the professionals in the sense, you could say that. Cam Newton, obviously not playing for the Patriots anymore, and he, I believe, it was an interview, if I'm not mistaken, where he mentioned about the fact that he would take, if he was asked, he would take the backup position for the Patriots, but he wouldn't want to do that because it would cause too much stress or pressure on Mac Jones. And for him also to then, say earlier in the season that he is better than 32, one of the best 32 quarterbacks, whatever it is. I don't know if you saw that or heard of when he said that, but what do you take away from, his comments about, playing a backup would be too much pressure on Mac Jones?
I completely understand where he's coming from. In 2015, he won MVP, and then 6 years later, he's out of the league and kind of struggling to get his way back in. So I understand where he's coming from. I think it's definitely hard, with his status to, especially with Mac Jones being a rookie quarterback, with his status to, have someone like him look over his shoulder. I was surprised in itself in the move. I didn't actually think Mac was going to start from week 1. I thought they were going to wait till week 5 against the Texans and bring him in. But I completely understand where Cam's coming from. I think eventually I thought Washington was going to pull the trigger, especially with the Ron Rivera connection. But I think at some point, some team's going to bring him in, and he's going to be a tremendous value to them.
Now, that kind of answers my next question, a two-parter. in terms of his career, where does he go from here? If he has a career going forward, do you think he'll find another team at this point in the season, or will we have to wait till a longer period?
I think as of now, he's probably going to have to wait. Probably around October, November, that he'll probably get another shot, I think. But I think going forward, he's either going to be a backup or more of like a red zone quarterback, something of kind of like what you saw with, I don't know if you remember what Georgia did a couple years ago with Jacob Eason and Justin Fields. He's going to kind of be in that Justin Fields role where he's in the taking a lot of snaps in the red zone and a lot of goal line. And I think that's what he's going to be doing for his career. But I also think he's a great locker room guy. He's a great energy around any organization. And I think he's going to find his place somewhere. So I don't think his career is over, like he said in the interview.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll miss, although I'm not a Patriots fan, I'll certainly miss seeing his interesting selection of wardrobe choices in those Zoom interviews. Now, and
if I may ask, what's your favorite team?
I'm a Vikings fan. I sometimes I don't like to admit it, like I don't like to say it, only because it's known in the past they haven't done that great. I'm not the biggest fan of Kirk Cousins. Sometimes he plays good, but sometimes he doesn't. But it is what it is. As just mentioning, another note for NFL football, the season just started. Obviously, it's a long way away for the playoffs. But if you could guess, who is your prediction? I would hope to think for both to win the NFC, AFC, and then eventually the Super Bowl.
I think out of the AFC, I think the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are going to come back. And then for the NFC, I hate to say the Bucks is the easy answer, but I can't think of any other team that's better than them. But I also think I don't think we're gonna get a repeat of the Super Bowl from last year. I think something's gonna happen. I know I just said Chiefs and Bucks, but I think something is gonna happen where either one of those teams gets knocked out at some point in the playoffs.
I just saw on another a tangent about the Bucks. I saw it on social media. Either it was last night or some point before this. Sorry. That Tom Brady said he's got like 6 more years left to play till 50. Now, I know he's got a vendetta against practically every front office official in the NFL. And, he won last year, and obviously he comes back each time he wins a Super Bowl. In your opinion, when does he finally say, I'm done, I'm retiring, I don't have to keep trying to win Super Bowls just to piss off everyone that hates me around the world?
I think the answer is simple. I think it comes down to what Giselle says. And I was kind of shocked seeing that yesterday. Like, oh, she's not going to like that. Because I know from the Tom versus Time documentary, she had mentioned that he wanted him to stop playing around the age of, I think it was 40 or 41. And I know she's not going to like hearing that. So I think Tom will want to play until he'll probably want to play until he dies. But Giselle, I think, is going to be the person that's like, oh yeah, like it's time to hang it up.
I like him now that he's not on the Patriots, but I don't know what left one has to prove. I mean, in his position, I mean he's won more than a half dozen Super Bowls, and I don't. God bless him. He wants to have every record in the NFL. Now, switching to another topic briefly, you had completed a internship at AB6 News here in Rhode Island, my home state of myself. For you, when you were looking for an internship, what spoke out about ABC6 that made you want to do one with them?
So the first thing was I basically reached out to all the local stations. It's something anyone who does know me, anyone who has talked to me knows that I want to get into local television, specifically with sports. So I basically reached out to all the local stations. ABC was kind of the first one that kind of showed not necessarily interest, but they were like, yeah, like we'd love to have you. And then it was kind of tricky at first with COVID, but as stuff started loosening, they were like, yeah, we want to have you, want to have you. And then eventually, luckily, everything worked out. And I ended up working there this summer. And then also, for anyone at URI who is familiar with Kate Rogerson, she was also pretty big in kind of helping me figure out that, that's probably a great place for you to intern. So shout out to her if she's watching.
Now, obviously, you're completed that internship. I'm curious. Obviously, you were with professionals, not just college students here, right? But what did you? I'm curious. What did you learn? Not just about yourself, but as that profession as well, which you hopefully get into.
The biggest thing I'd say is kind of like just the everyday grind of it. I think it's like it's different at school, but it was like far different, like professionally. Like there's so much you have to do in such little amount of time, just to make sure that whatever your assignment you're doing for the day makes it for the news. And that was cool. That was definitely eye-opening, because I know here, like I feel like here sometimes like you have all the time in the world to get stuff done, especially with like assignments and school and stuff. But it's just like there, it's like you have like 5 or 6 hours to get a story done, and then it's on the news the next day. And that was just the biggest eye opener. And I think that's going to help me because I think, just seeing that and seeing that you have to do that a couple years down the line when it's time to look for jobs and stuff, that's how things are going to be.
You kind of mentioned, the time in the world and how, I would think you could consider it, forgiving or easygoing, I guess that you could say in terms of handing stuff in. In the real world, that's not necessarily the case. And there's, especially in journalism, there's a thin margin of error in terms of correctness and that stuff. For you, how do you, as someone who's, even in an internship or I guess, going to be in that industry down the line, how do you function in that type of atmosphere? And does it sort of, push you into the direction, make sure you're saying the most 100%, true, authentic story?
I just honestly think you have to get things done as soon as they come across, as soon as they cross your mind. And that's something that I've definitely started doing. Well, I did it here and there, but it's just something that I've kind of emphasized now, that I've kind of saw the value this summer of just like, as soon as you think of something or as soon as, that you need to get something done, get it done, because, especially procrastinating and stuff, you're going to have to get it done eventually.
Yeah.
So it's just better to get it done now instead of worrying about it later.
At going back to URI for a quick joyride, they've invested, and it's known they've invested lots of money into both, athletics and then obviously journalism with Ranger Hall, and then the studio. They redid that recently. How excited are you, to see the future, both the athletics and, the journalism field go into the future?
I think it's awesome. I have conversations with my brother about this all the time, but I just think that as more people learn about the Harrington School and more what it has to offer, and just the more success that the athletic programs, I think, it's endless what the possibilities are. But as the athletic programs experience more success, I think it'll help the Harrington School because it'll give students more opportunities to do different things and experience different things. And that'll only help them out when they go look for jobs and out in the real world.
Now, for you, I mean, you're very fortunate because you're part of it. And, around when it first, was recreated or redone, the broadcast center. I only wish that when I first started URI that, it was, as well as was now, and so on and so forth. But how convenient is it for you to have this new state-of-the-art studio to do, the Cigar news and sports stuff and that short sort of shtick there at the station?
It's awesome. It's awesome. I love that place. It's like I'm in awe every time I walk in there, and it's like it's amazing to see like what you're able to do, and it's just so cool that I have the opportunity through the newscast to kind of just be in there, work in there, and kind of just learn and do and create cool stuff in there. What was the second part of that question? I feel like
Oh
I
no,
was missing something.
no. I was just saying, how for you, how exciting is it for you to have that availability? Because those prior to didn't have as great of a quality broadcast center as you did.
Did you have, if I may ask, did you know what the old broadcast center looked like? Because when I came in, I believe it was the first year. Yeah, it was the first year. So I don't know what the old one looked like.
Yeah, because I'll be graduating this year, so I never saw it. I never knew. I didn't even know where it was. I didn't even know we had one until they first were mentioning that they were gonna redo it in the grand opening. And I just I had a class with Yanni when he was still here, and I did that, and that was great. I'm like, wow, this is pretty impressive and pretty cool that URI is fortunate enough to have people who care enough to invest all this money into this, because like the internship, you're learning stuff that helps into that field. So now you're not just standing there with empty hands, not knowing what to do when it's time to get a career in this field.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. The one thing was that also with my internship, a lot of the concepts and stuff that they were mentioning, I was pretty familiar with it because I had experience in the broadcast center.
And that must be a sigh of relief that you're able to advance much further than others who aren't accustomed to that. On another note, I've asked this the last a few guests that in the same realm as you in terms of sports media personnel: Will Pipicelli, Adam Bernstein, and obviously now yourself and maybe a few others. And as we mentioned earlier, some of the programs haven't had that great of success. Some have taken a few years, to build up, and then last year, example football, start off one of their best records they have in a while. Though it was only 3 games. And years past, it's kind of been disappointing to say the least. And then basketball, they had a rough go around last year with transfers and so on and so forth. In your opinion, as a sports journalist, how much of an important year is this for both Coach Fleming and Coach Cox?
I think regardless of whether, I definitely think it's an important year. For Coach Fleming, you definitely want to build off of a strong spring. But I don't think, if he doesn't have a great year, I think he'll still be around.
Yeah.
Coach Cox, I also think I'm not necessarily in the group of people on Twitter that often called for him to be fired last year. I think we have to understand in that case, we have to understand the circumstances of, bringing in 7 players, dealing with COVID, not having the proper amount of time to kind of let things gel.
Yeah.
I think this year with him, you definitely do want to do well. I believe his contract's not expiring this year, but he has an option for next year. But I believe with him, you definitely do want to do well, because you kind of don't want to set that precedent. First year you do all right, second year is your best year, and then it kind of goes downhill from there.
Yeah. I asked this to Thor in the sense of, having patience for this and hitting a rough patch, staying, on course and trying to get, players to stay 3-4 years getting the degree, which, was a big important factor for Thor. In your perspective, how does Cox, obviously last year was tough, but how does he ensure that players that he's bringing in, whether it's players from a different team, although that's not necessarily the case anymore, but players that whether they're transfers on his watch or freshmen or whatever it may be, that come to the team that stay for, more than just a season or 2?
I think part of it is his, you definitely do want to, it's tough for him to kind of recruit all of your players every year.
Yeah.
But also it's, we have to think about who's in the players' circles. A lot of players have different people saying, oh, you should do this. You're not getting enough time. you could go somewhere else where you can get this time. And I can imagine it's hard for a coach, but it's also, we're in just the era of the transfer portal where players can easily go somewhere else and get more playing time, get a more desirable experience. But I also feel for the players because many people don't think these players, they spend 40, 50 hours a week playing basketball. They go to school just for basketball. Reality, yeah, that's the case, that they go to school just to play basketball. And I can only imagine, like, things not going your way, not being the what you expected. And you get miserable, especially if it's somewhere where you're like a few hundred miles away from home. You don't have any connection, with family and stuff. That's hard. That stuff's hard. So I don't know. It's an interesting time in college basketball. I think it's interesting for coaches. It makes their job a lot harder. I think that definitely also does play in a factor in terms of job security. It'll definitely be more important in the future for coaches to be able to keep their guys. But it's also, part of it is not, there's so many factors into what makes players leave and stuff.
Now, on a more hopeful note, although I'm sure that the men's team obviously would be hopeful and a positive note, but obviously the women's program did very well. Where do you see them going? Do you see them making the NCAA tournament this year, or is that down the line in another year or two?
I think definitely this year, if they want to make the NCAA tournament, they're probably going to have to win the league. But I think sometime in the near future, at some point they'll definitely probably make the NCAA tournament. But in terms of this year, just because of the A10, the past couple of years, it's been a 1-2 bid league.
Yeah.
And if we base that off of last year with URI finishing fourth, they're going to have to finish. They're either going to have to win the league or have a very impressive regular season, and then for them to make the NCAA tournament. But I think this year they have a great shot. I think they'll be one of the top 3 teams in the league this year. And I honestly, I'm looking forward to watching them. I'm looking forward to covering them, and they should be fun.
Well, it's sort of a great thing to watch. See this team grow and develop, and now people coming back. Because I remember my freshman year, I covered one women's basketball game. It was a preseason game against BC or Rick or whoever it was, a local regional school, and there was maybe a few dozen people there. And now you see Coach Reese comes. Even the first year, still more commotion than the second year. They do so amazing, and then you see people are caring about it, the program again, interested and invested. So it's great. And to be honest, in my perspective, I mean, I would love to see them make the NCAA tournament. They bring in better. I don't want to say better recruited players, but higher rated recruited players in terms of the star ranking system. And it'd definitely be great to see more, traction and whatnot. But it's almost like if they do, that's great. But if they don't, that's not the end of the road, because they still obviously have next year and so on and so forth. Well, I'm going to end with this. This is the little thing I like to do the last handful of episodes, the 1-word challenge. So I'll put out some topics or words where it is, and I'll try to give your best, whatever word comes to your head or phrase. Good 5-cent cigar.
Family.
John Pantalone.
I can't describe it in one word. Interesting. Let me use that.
Sports journalism.
Can we get back to that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Adam Schefter.
He's a whiz. It's impressive. He's really impressive especially with his football knowledge and being able to get sports information and news out so quickly.
It's impressive.
It's incredible.
Okay, this one's a little bit more controversial, I think, in terms of the overall opinion of them. Barstool Sports and Dave Portnoy.
I can't describe. I have something in mind, but I can't describe it. I'm not the hugest fan of Barstool at Portnoy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so URI Athletics.
Uh, let me say diamond in the rough.
Okay.
I'm going to use that.
And then we'll go back to sports journalism.
Man, I wish. I don't want to say something basic, but I do also want to give you something good. It's kind of like it's a grind. Let me say that. It's a grind. Okay. It's a grind.
Okay. And then this final one, Aniekan Okon.
I don't even. That's interesting. No one's ever asked me that. I would say dedicated. I think, I try to put my best foot forward with everything and try to do everything right. And I hope I've done that so far. But I think that's kind of what I would like to portray out to other people. Well, I work hard.
On to big and bigger things. So, all to you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I thank my guest this week for coming on. It means a great deal that he took some time out of his Friday to do this for me. So I greatly appreciate it. If you enjoy what you're watching and listening to, because I know there's millions and millions of people out there who are tuning into this every week, like Joe Rogan type numbers. So do us a favor. Leave a like. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a like, smash the like button. I'm not going to swear because, I don't want to get in trouble with those who pay the bills at my house. But smash the heck of the like button. Subscribe to on YouTube. Click that notification bell so you're notified when new episodes drop, and click that share button, because what that tells myself and my guests and everyone else who's invested in this, that you're invested and you want to bring in more success to the show. If you're listening to this, click that heart button, follow the podcast, turn on post notifications, and share it as well. Do you want to plug anything, any social media or any upcoming things you got?
Yeah, sure. So you guys can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Aniekan. So I'll spell that out: ANIEKAN _Okon OKON_. So Aniekan _Okon _.
And follow the Twitter account, Nolan Car Night. Nolan Car Night Show. I believe that's what it is. And Instagram is Nolan Car Night Show. I post stuff on TikTok, so I think it's Nolan Car Official. So yeah, check that out, and I'll see you soon in the near future for another episode. In the words of Johnny Carson, I bid you all a heartfelt good night.